Welcome to the Veterans Archives podcast, where every veteran story is honored and celebrated. Join us as we delve into the rich histories and experiences of those who have served our nation. You can catch our podcast on all major podcast platforms, as well as every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Reads Across America Radio. At Veterans Archives, we believe your story matters. Visit our website at www.veteransarchives.org to explore more about our mission, discover resources for veterans, and stay updated on upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to engage with our community. Subscribe, like, and share to spread awareness about our veteran stories. Whether you're a veteran, a supporter, or simply curious about the profound journeys of those who have served, Veterans Archives invites you to listen in, learn, and be inspired. Join us as we continue to honor and preserve the legacies of our veterans. Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, October 8th, and we're here with Jason Hindmarsh, who served in the United States Air Force. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
So we're going to start out super simple today. If you could just tell us when and where you were born.
So I was born July 10th, 1976 in Grand Forks Air Force Base. One of the last few kids ever born on the base before they started pushing everybody off base. My parents, Ron and Sandra Hindmarsh, and I had one sister at the time.
Oh, okay. So you were born into the Air Force, is what
Yes,
I'm
I
hearing.
was.
And what are some of your earliest memories as a child?
Don't remember much from when my dad was still in the Air Force when I were that Fairchild. What I start remembering was when we were in Spokane, Washington. My dad had gotten out of the military after being over in Thailand for a year. He got out and started, doing stuff there in Spokane. And I remember being at our house and my sister having a cast and saving me from a neighborhood bully that was ready to kick the ladder over after I was trying to grab a plum off of the plum tree. She ran over and smacked him in the head with their cast.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Why'd your sister have a cast on her arm?
I don't remember why. I had hurt her arm earlier that year, and I don't remember exactly what it was for. Being that young, it's just the small little bits and pieces of things that I really remember. Really start remembering things when we moved to another town. I started going into school.
Okay. And so your dad was in the Air Force. What did your mom do?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a period of time, and then after we started moving around, they realized they needed to have two jobs, so she started working retail.
Oh, okay. All right. And then when your dad got out of the Air Force, do you remember what he was doing?
He was being assets protection. So he was security forces or law enforcement. They were split at the time.
Okay.
The Air Force. So he was kind of still doing the same thing he had done in the military when he got out. Okay.
A lot of people do that. They
Yes.
get out, they come back as a contractor. I hear the pay is a little bit better.
Oh, yeah, that's what I hear as well.
So tell me a little bit about your mom and what are some of your favorite memories of her?
Some of the favorite things I have about my mom, it's just she had a warm, caring heart. Anything going on, always sit down and just listen to us kids. What our problem was, help us work through it and understand the dynamics of what was happening and how to move on from what we had experienced and, why we were feeling the way we were feeling. Like I said, my parents worked a lot. So they're latchkey kid for the most part growing up, as a lot of kids were during that time frame. So good memories of family trips, going out to my grandparents' place in Idaho and other places like that.
Okay. Kind of the same question. What about your dad? When you think about him, what are some of your favorite memories?
Growing up, me and my dad had a love-hate relationship. Of course, I remember it differently than he always remembers it. It's always the way it is.
Right.
Yeah. So what I liked about my dad, what I loved about him is that he instilled into me and my sibling a very great sense of responsibility and duty, hard work ethic, him along with my grandparents, hard workers their whole life. I mean, my grandfather in northern Idaho, he built his whole house from all the lumber and everything on his house, on his property. Everything was done by hand. And so, I mean, going up there for the summers, get off.
Wasn't summer vacation?
No, it was summer vacation of, learning how to get firewood for the winter and, do different things. But, beyond all that, you had great times of going fishing and everything else. It was enjoyable.
Well, it's got to be beautiful there too.
Oh, yeah. It was very beautiful.
Yeah. So what about your sister? So you've already kind of talked about one of your favorite memories when she clobbered the bully.
Yep.
But growing up, how close in age were you?
We are about, I think it's like a year and a half to 2 years apart from each other.
Okay.
So not too terribly far. She joined the Air Force a couple of years before I did.
Mm-hmm.
And, we got along, normal civil rivalry,
Yeah.
but, got along pretty well.
Okay. Now you had alluded to that when you were born, you had one sister at the time. Do you have other siblings then?
No, just the two of us, me and my older sister.
Oh, okay. All right. And so you stayed out there for a while. So I'm sure there's a long journey back to Michigan, but is your parents' family from that area, or how did you end up where you were at, or was it just because of the Air Force?
As in when how I got to Michigan here, or Washington State and stuff?
Yeah,
like
Washington State
Washington
when
State.
you're out west.
Yeah. So my mom's parents ended up in Washington State after, to a long story on just her and her travels throughout life. But he worked for Long Year Drilling, and that's where they ended up out. It was Washington State. And so went back to Washington State, be around them and my other grandparents in Idaho. And
Okay. All right. So you're there with your sister. You're growing up latchkey kids. How was school for you?
I wasn't the greatest in school. I could have done a lot better. Hindsight 2020, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I wasn't the strongest academic scholar out there.
Were you that kid where the guidance counselor, the teacher would tell your parents, he's got great potential, but you just never lived up to it?
There were some that were that way. There's others that were, especially later on in high school, are like, yeah, he's not going to do much of anything in his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah. Well, it's something they talked to my parents about, after we had a meeting. So they're like, they told my parents told me that afterwards. I was like, huh, okay.
Time to prove some people wrong.
Exactly.
I think though that we grew up in a time where college was really pushed or thrust on people. And if you weren't going to go to college, then you weren't going to do anything with your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I totally get that. Did you play any sports in school at all?
I tried baseball. I did baseball when I was a lot younger, but I didn't play much of anything in high school or anything else. I did a little inline hockey as a 0-hour class. Enjoyed that. It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So other than that stellar report from your guidance counselor, is there anything that like sticks out about your time in school, or anything that like a good memory or just a memory?
So there's a couple items. So it's kind of proving people wrong. Mm-hmm. So I had joined delayed enlistment for like my senior year in high school.
Okay.
The whole not doing good in school all the way through to high school, plagued me all the time. So I sat down and they're like, hey, you're not going to graduate. You don't have enough credit hours. You failed too many classes. There's no way you can do it. I was like, okay, well, I don't agree with that. There has to be some way. And they're like, well, there's classes you could take. You just got to go find the teachers and allow you to do, ad hoc class after hours. It's like, okay. So I went around to all the teachers, talked to them all. I think my senior year, at one point in time, I was doing 12 plus classes a semester just to get enough credit hours to graduate. And the after school classes were all self-paced. So
right.
If I get them knocked out, cool. Come to be my senior year in high school, I graduated that year alone with a B average. Mm-hmm. Now, everything else before that was like a D.
Right.
So I was like, hey, I can actually do this stuff.
The bar was kind of set low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did all those classes, graduated, showed the counselor, hey, you were wrong. I joined the military, came back to my girlfriend's homecoming class or dance. And I came back in my uniform.
Right.
Wore my, service uniform. And she was there taking all the tickets. And I was like, see, I'm actually am doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there an apology that came out of that?
There's nothing, just kind of a odd look from her. It's like, okay, eat a little crow here.
Right. Well, so I got to ask you this question. Do you think, I'm just going to be blunt, because this is how I am. So do you think that you were bored? Clearly you're not unintelligent. So I'm just curious, do you think maybe you were just bored? Because when you had a challenge, you excelled. But when you were just cruising through, you were like a D student.
Yeah, it could be exactly what it was. Really wasn't challenged. It was, I could pass classes by barely putting any effort in and just, whatever. That's sounds about correct for, that time frame. And then everything that's gone on since that, get a challenge thrown in front of me. All right, I'll take it on. I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I'll figure it out. I'll make it work, make it happen.
Well, and I think it probably will learn that a lot of that came, it was kind of in you to begin with, but it might have been developed a little bit through the military.
Yep.
So you graduate high school. How long after graduation did you actually go to basic training?
So I graduated in June, and I went to basic in September.
Okay.
September 27th of 1995, I joined.
So you had your summer then.
Yep, had the summer.
Any risk of not being able to go to boot camp because of that?
I made sure to behave myself during the summer. Had that delayed enlistment, knew what I wanted to do. The funny thing is, I knew what I wanted to do back when I was in middle school.
Okay.
They're like, hey, what do you want to do? Military. Didn't know what branch or what I wanted to do in the military. It was just military. I want to go into the military. Mm-hmm. And so, fast forward, through everything and, decided to join the Air Force.
Now, do you think that your joining the military was influenced by being in a military family and having been around it? I mean, I know your dad, it sounds like your dad was out by the time you were older, but I mean, I'm sure he talked some about it.
Well, unfortunately, it really seemed like it was a taboo type subject.
Oh.
Because, my dad, he had gotten out towards the end of the Vietnam era. So a lot of that, a lot of those individuals are shunned for their service to the military or the country and things like that. So they didn't talk about it much. I saw things of his around the house, but it wasn't, displayed prominently of, I'm proud of this and whatnot. It was just, it was in a drawer underneath some stuff.
Okay.
And I knew my grandparents were in on both sides, and they didn't talk about it much, as well, because it was, years ago for them, and there's other things that they'd rather talk about.
Right. So, I mean, completely opposite then, really. I mean, you knew people that were in, but you weren't really immersed in this whole thing. Correct. It was just something you wanted to do.
Yep.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Not a lot of people in middle school go from that's what they want to do and then end up doing it. So talk to us a little bit about arriving at basic training. What was it like when you first stepped off that bus?
It was exactly how my father said it was going to be. When I told him I was going to join, he's like, all right, this is how it's going to go down. You're going to go up there. You're going to show up. And he's like, don't go in there with the shaved head already. Go with a basic haircut that's not too long, not too long, not too short. Just trying to blend into the crowd because you really don't want to draw attention to yourself by the drill instructors.
Right.
He's like, go with a small bag with a change of clothes in it, and that's all you need, and some toiletries. You don't need anything else. So that's exactly what I did. I went there, I showed up, they're screaming and yelling at people as normal. And, my life growing up, I was kind of used to that, tough love per se, call it that way. So I was like, okay, do what I'm told to do when I'm told to do it, and it'll be fine.
So there was no shock when you got off the bus. Like, a lot of people were totally shocked, like, oh my God, what'd I do? You didn't show up with your Gucci bags and all your clothes and everything.
Yeah. There's a couple of kids that came in. They left fairly shortly. There's they weren't prepared mentally for the challenges of it.
Right.
So
I see. So now, Air Force Basic was it 8 weeks, 10 weeks?
it's like 8 or 10 weeks. I can't remember. They've changed it a little bit over the time.
Right. Right. So how overall then, how did basic training go for you?
Basic training was pretty simple. Do your physical fitness, memorize the stuff in the books, your ranks and of enlisted and officers, as every branch has to learn, your normal customs and courtesies, do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, fold your clothes a specific way and all those different things. It's just get it done and understand it.
Right.
And understand, some people are like, I don't understand why I have to fold my shirt into a 6x6 square. It's like, well, it's not, can you do it? It's like, okay, you can do it, but you can follow directions.
Right.
It's a task in following directions. And can you follow those directions?
It's not about the shirt.
Exactly.
People get wrapped up in the shirt or my personal favorite. I don't know if you guys did this, but the shaving cream can could not have not even a little bit of shaving, right? Like it felt really stupid at the time, but then as you go through your career, you realize this attention to detail is very important depending on what you do. So what did you sign up for? What was your?
I actually came in open general mechanic.
Okay.
So a lot of people came in open general and then they threw them in any job that they wanted to put them into. I came in at least open general mechanic, so it was any mechanical career field.
Right.
My sister was already in at that time, and she was a crew chief on C-130s. So I was like, that'd be cool. I can potentially be stationed with my sister and whatnot. So I put down crew chief C-130s, crew chief C-5s, and then you get 3 choices. Last choice was power production. I was like, work on generators, power plants. Sounds interesting. So I put it down my 3rd choice. Typical military fashion, they give you the 3rd choice.
You're lucky you got any of the choices, to be honest with you. Right?
Yeah. So I got selected for power production and went through my basic training. And, from there I went to Shepherd Air Force Base for my follow-on training.
So do they have a name for follow-on training? Like I know the Army's like AIT, Advanced Individual Training, and the Navy's like MOS school. Do they have something like that for the Air Force?
Technical school, school.
Okay. That's right. Because in the Air Force, technician is the term that's used, correct? Okay. All right. And then how long was your school?
School was over the Christmas and Thanksgiving time frame, so it got extended a little bit. It was like 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay. Now, did you come home after basic, or did you just go right to training?
I went straight to training.
Okay.
Well, training is at Lakeland Air Force Base, Texas, and my Air Force Base, Texas. And so it was just right up the road. They threw us all on a bus.
Yeah.
Off you went.
Now, was your school kind of just an extension of basic training?
It started out that way because they didn't want to give you full reign of everything else. You had to go through phases to be able to not have to wear your uniform all the time. You could wear civilian clothes on the weekend and different things like that. And, you get to phase 3, then you get liberties off base. Okay.
And I'm sure you had at least 1 or 2 of those people who tried to buck the system on that one, right?
Yep.
Tried to wear their civilian clothes when they were supposed to or whatever. So anything stick out that you remember about your time in training?
So there's a couple of things. I wasn't always a rule follower. We got some it was a white rum, little pint of white rum up into the dorms, and take our Coke cans and pour them out halfway and fill them up, and we're sitting in the dorm room and just having a rum and Coke and nut of age and just enjoying ourselves and just, all right, we can't be stupid, just enjoy it and just don't talk about it to anybody else, and everything's fine. But it's the folks that got stupid with it and didn't keep everything within check and just made everybody and their brother know about it that got in trouble.
The stupid people always get caught.
Yes.
Right? Even the smart ones get caught sometimes.
They do.
But the stupid ones always get caught, for
do.
sure. So where did you go from after training? Did you come home for leave at all, or did you just go on to your next assignment?
So I took leave during Christmas at technical school, so I didn't go home after that.
Okay.
I went straight to my first base, which was in New Mexico. So for some reason, the base didn't know I was coming. So the airport that services the base is over in El Paso, Texas, and I'm going to Alamogordo, Texas, at Holloman Air Force Base. And it's about an hour drive. So I show up. There's nobody around. I'm going, okay, let me figure out my way to the base. And I've, self-helped my way to the base and got on there and figured out how to get into the dormitories where I was supposed to be staying, and figured out where the unit was, and walked over there on Monday when I knew everybody would be working, and showed up, say, hey, I'm the new guy. I'm here to work. What do I need to do? And they're like, oh, you're here? We expected nobody. So it was a surprise to them, and they got me all signed into the unit and everything else. And
I'm sure they found work for you, though.
Oh, yeah, they've always found work for you.
Never a lack of that. I was always afraid, like when I ended up at a place where they weren't quite expecting me yet, that I was going to end up painting rocks or something just not very much fun.
They did that to the folks in technical school or basic training if they had a long layover or they were goofed up. It's like, okay, you're going to go paint those rocks over there, or you're going to arrange the rocks to spell out the unit's name or something like that, the different colored rocks. But yeah, never had to do that stuff.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So how long were you at this first assignment?
I was at the first assignment. I got there, it would have been in 96. I was there for about 3 years. In that 3 years I was there, when you first come in, you X number of years in, you get promoted to the next ranks and everything else. I was at E2, and they decided to send me off to a specialty school to get a special equipment identifier next to my career field name.
So I don't want to interrupt, but just so I can kind of get a bit bigger picture. So everyone goes to basic training and they get the same training, and then you go on to your follow-on school and you kind of the 10,000 foot view of what you're going to do. And then within that job field, there are these specialties, right? Is that kind of how that worked?
There are specialties for specific areas. Like there's a specialty for aircraft arresting systems.
Okay.
And that's really the only big specialty out there for them is aircraft arresting systems. And in order to run a maintenance crew or anything like that with the aircraft arresting systems, you have to go to the specialty school and get qualified and certified in it. And then you can, run a crew and have people that outrank you on the crew, but yet you're telling them what to do.
That's a special kind of thing to have happen, isn't it?
It is.
You have, what is it? All of the, it's not all the authority and none of the rank or something. I can't remember what they say. Yeah. There's a saying that's out there. Anyway, you get to get in all the trouble.
Exactly.
And they don't have to listen to you.
Yep.
That's kind of how that works. Okay. So you go to your specialty school and then you come back to that same?
Yeah. Come back to the same unit. It was, so every unit I was assigned to for the most part was a civil engineering unit.
Okay.
Responsible for, maintaining the base or building a base when deployed.
Okay.
So went out, did that, came back. I got married at that base to my wife, Jennifer.
So hold on.
Yeah. How'd this happen?
Yeah. How do we meet Jennifer? Jason?
I met Jennifer happenstance in high school.
Okay.
I was a senior, and it was wintertime. There's snow outside. I went out and grabbed a snowball, and I was gonna messing around through a snowball that was supposed to hit somebody else, but it hit her instead.
Okay.
And from there, it just kind of came about. We rode the same bus, lived in the same neighborhood. There's some things she tells me about I don't remember. Like, she would put her foot up across the aisleway on the bus and block me, and I have to interact with her or just jump over her legs, something like that.
Right.
For some reason I don't remember those type of things, but she's happy to remind me that things like that happened. Then there was a high school dance, and when I was in high school, I cowboy hat, shirt, boots, the whole 9 yards. That's how I dressed. And it was a country dance, and I knew how to dance. And so all these girls were going, "Hey, show me how to dance, show me how to dance." And okay. And it ended up showing her to dance and dance with her for the most part.
Because anyone who ever grew up knows that boys don't like to dance, right?
Exactly.
And if you're the boy that likes to dance, you could be popular.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we dated most of my senior year. The rest of her next year was her senior year. All that, and then November we got married in 96.
Okay. And so is this the same girl that you went to the dance with in uniform?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep, same girl.
Yeah, okay. I want to make sure there wasn't something I was missing here.
Nope.
So it's interesting because I feel like the high school romances either go great or they crash and burn. It sounds like yours went really well.
Yeah, it did.
So you got married, and then did you stay at the same unit, or did you move on?
So I stayed there at that unit for about 3 years. And
Right.
in that 3 years, I went to the specialty course. I got deployed for the first time after me and my wife had been married for a short period of time. My son was born there. So yeah, a lot of things in 3 short years.
Yeah, well, that's the military. Things happen quickly.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about your deployment. Where'd you deploy to?
So the first deployment, they were changing everything up at the time. They're going from 3 to 4 month deployments. And so they had messed up my coding of what unit I was supposed to go to over there.
Okay.
So I showed up in Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia. They look at my stuff after a couple of days. "Oh, you're not supposed to be here." "Okay, where am I supposed to be?" "Oh, you're supposed to be over at, I think it was Al Udeid." It's like, okay. So armored vehicle comes over, gets me, it's up armored Suburban. They convoy back over. I get there and they're like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be here." "Okay, where am I supposed to be?" You're supposed to be in Kuwait." So I'm in the wrong country altogether.
You're not going to get in a Suburban and go there.
Yeah, no. So they drove me back. It's kind of a theme here. Put me on a medevac C-130, fly me up to Kuwait. They lower the ramp of the aircraft and they're like, "All right, get your bags, get off the plane." I step off the plane and they taxi away. I'm left standing on the tarmac by myself and going, I don't think they expect me here.
It's a theme in your life, Jason.
Exactly. Showing up where they don't expect me.
Yeah. So, when you deploy, though, it sounds like you deployed like as an individual augmentee then?
Yep.
So you don't, was it just in your job you didn't deploy as a whole unit?
So most of the deployments were individual augmentees. Very few deployments were a whole unit.
Okay.
I think I only went on 2 of those my whole time in the career in the military. Everything else was a individual augmentee.
Okay. So you're standing on the tarmac, you're in Kuwait, you're like, crap, they're not expecting me either. This reminds me of something else. So what happens?
I flag down the first vehicle I see and they come up, say, "Hey, I just got dropped off. Take me to the civil engineering unit." And they're like, "Okay." And threw my bags into their pickup truck they had and they drove me over there and showed up, say, "Hey, I'm here. Here's my orders." They're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, you're supposed to be here.
Awesome.
I'll get somebody over here to get you and get you a room and everything else." So that deployment, I had, let's see, it was a small unit there, but I was in charge of the aircraft ingressing systems. I taught the Kuwaiti military, the fire department, how to respond for engagements with aircraft and how to run the equipment. Trained the Kuwaiti engineers on how to operate them because we were supposed to hand them over to them when we left in a couple years. So yeah, a lot of different things there, and that's where I got my first decoration.
And what was that for?
That was for everything I did over there during that deployment. It was an Air Force Commendation Medal. And so, all the work I did training the people, maintaining the systems as a E3, and stepping in and helping out a lot of different other organizations on the base on doing different things because they're all short staffed. And it's like, all right, I don't have nothing going on. I'll help out, learn something new.
Right.
And so, that whole work ethic of I'm not going to sit around and do nothing. I want to do something. If I'm going to be here, I want to be, amply employed.
Right. Right. And I don't want this to be lost on anyone. How old were you?
Oh, let's see. I was 20 at that time for that one. Cause I came back right before my 21st birthday.
Right. So you're 20.
I was 20.
Here you are in Kuwait, and you're training people on systems, and you're doing things that are potentially saving people's lives, and you're 20. And you're doing a lot of it. You're doing because you just know it needs to get done. No one told you to do it. That's pretty amazing.
Yep.
For a guy that age to be doing that. So you were in Kuwait. I want to ask you this too. Is when you got to Kuwait, did it seem like you'd landed on the moon?
It was.
I mean, how did it feel to you when you got to Kuwait?
It was different because you can still see off in the distance the burning oil fields.
Right.
That's what, 96 time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was it hot?
Oh, it was really hot. That's when I found out what hot was.
Right. Right. It's dry heat though. That's okay, right?
Oh, yeah,
Jason?
dry heat. Yeah.
Dry heat. You know what I tell people about dry heat? Dry heat is like turn your oven on to 400 and stick your head in it.
Yeah.
And then take a hair dryer and blow dry your hair. That's dry heat, buddy.
Yes.
I don't care.
It's hot.
Yeah.
This is when I learned that my boots can actually melt when standing on asphalt.
Yeah.
In the sun.
That's the truth. People don't believe that stuff, but that really that actually happens.
Yeah, it does.
So you're over there for a while, and you actually, so in the short time you're there, you accomplished a lot.
Yep.
And then you come back home, and I mean, you hadn't been married for very long, so it must have been nice to get back home to your wife, and so what happens?
Come back, and life continues on, and I do some other specialty items there at the base. Just things that just kind of popped in my head, and I haven't thought about in years. Got involved with getting trained to go out and do search and recovery for aircraft that crashed with the pilots in them. Got trained on chemical, biological, nuclear warfare as an augmentee for that group of people. And so a lot of cool training that normal people don't get that's in power production. But for some reason, I was right place, right time, and got some good training and went out and did a search and recovery on a F-16 pilot from the National Guard that went down with his plane out in the White Sands Missile Range, and found parts of his body, and stuff for to be able to send back home to his family.
Right. Right.
Those are the things that are surreal, that are just like, it's hard work, it's exhausting work, but it's work that has to get done. And happy to have been able to go out and do things like that to, help bring things home for other people. Yeah,
because you weren't going to save his life, but at least his family would be able to take care of him.
Yeah,
that's important.
Exactly,
really important. So it sounds like you don't just sit around and wait for things to happen at all. I'm surprised there's not a pararescue training in here somewhere.
Oh, there's actually pararescue at the base, but I never did any of that.
I'm very surprised. So how long after your return from deployment was your child born?
My son was born in 98.
Okay. All right.
So a couple years.
So it wasn't a deployment baby.
No.
Okay. All right. That happens quite a bit. So talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, all the things that you're doing, you have a family and you have a son. What was that like for you?
It was kind of one of those surreal things. I really never thought about, grow up, have kids, stuff like that. I don't think guys really do that kind of stuff.
No.
Of course my wife did. She's like, I want to have kids. Like, okay, we can afford to have kids. I'm in the military. We're living on base. We're fine financially to do it. Also, okay, I'll have a kid. And so, along comes my son, and I'm working a lot of night shifts and things like that, but enjoying every moment that I can have with them. my grandparents come up from Arizona and visit and see them before we go to our next location. But yeah, I mean, great times with them as a little guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably some of the best memories, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of are doing your thing, and then it's time to go to your next assignment. So let's talk about that.
So when I came back from that deployment, we stopped at a place called Lodges Field, Azores, out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And it was nighttime. It was nice. I was looking. I was like, it'd be nice to be here. You know, it'd be like a pretty cool place to go. Then I can't remember if I got selected for it without putting in for it or if I put in for it. But that was my next location, Lodges Field, Azores.
Wow. And it wasn't even your third choice.
Nope.
So what was that like? Talk to us about that.
That is an awesome place to go.
And this is an accompanied tour?
Company tour. I went there as a 2-year company tour with the option to extend for a 3rd year.
Uh-huh.
So me, the wife, and my son, we pack up the whole house and off we go to the Azores. It's a subtropical island out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You know, if you draw a line from New York and Portugal, it's about almost right smack dab in the middle.
Is it a big place?
You know, it's not that big. You could probably drive around the island, the outskirt of it, in about an hour or so.
Yeah. So I'm curious because, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get stationed in Hawaii. And then they get stationed in Hawaii, like, oh my God, Hawaii is an island. It was fun for like the first 6 months, right? So you go to the Azores, so you're going to be there for 2 years. It sounds like it wasn't a bad experience for you at all.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I got involved with spearfishing to begin with.
Okay.
So went out to the ocean, enjoyed the ocean, loved seafood. My wife enjoyed, the one thing about the military life, especially overseas, phenomenal support from the other groups that are there. I mean, it's an extended family is what it is.
Right.
And so, we would have, dinners at different places, for holidays and things like that. And it was great. And so she had a really good support element there with all the additional spouses and whatnot. So
she's making a lot of good friends.
Yeah, she made good friends there.
Okay. What about you?
Yeah, I made some good friends there. People I'm still friends with today.
Okay. All right. And so your son's not really that old at this point.
No.
He's just kind of getting around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my funniest memories I have of him there is Halloween. Uh-huh. He's in a bumblebee outfit. I think I have video of this someplace.
He's not going to like you for that.
He's getting upset and he's having a temper tantrum and he's jumping up and down and flops on the ground and we're just watching. I was like, you can have your temper tantrum. You'll be fine. And then he does it and he gets done with it. And he's like, okay, can we go trick-or-treating now?
I kind of want to see a bumblebee having a temper tantrum. Yeah. I think that would be kind of interesting, in all honesty. So did you deploy out of the Azores at all?
I did.
Okay. Where'd you go from there?
I went to Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia.
So you were there once, but you didn't belong there.
Exactly.
You were there for real this time?
Correct.
All right. And what'd you do there?
So there I was the night shift for generator repair and maintenance.
Okay. Night shift, is that like midnight to 8 or something like that?
It was 12-hour shifts, so it was like 3 in the I can't remember the time frames we had. But anyways, yeah, it was each shift have 12 hours.
Okay.
So it could be 7 to 7, I think is really roughly what it was.
Okay. And how busy were you?
Oh, extremely busy.
Yeah.
At night, we repaired all the units, run out and refilled them all night long. Did a lot of troubleshooting and repairing of stuff. Mm-hmm. So got a good experience on the small mechanics of engines and.
Well, people relied on that stuff, especially in the desert, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you were there for how long?
That was 4 months.
Okay. And you head back to the Azores?
Yep. Head back to the Azores afterwards. Actually got promoted to staff sergeant when I was out there. Got my line number for it.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Does the Air Force do anything special when you get promoted like that?
Yeah, they do. So since we were over there, all of the stripes for people that got promoted, they do a promotion tack on type ceremony of, hey, congratulations, you got promoted, but you're going to have to wait till the line number comes up in X number of months.
Right.
They took all of our stripes and flew them in a F-15 over Iraq.
Oh,
They had
that's
a little
very cool.
certificate for it and everything else. And hey, these were flown over Iraq in an F-15, this mission number, whatnot. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen them like they'll fly a flag over the State Department or something, but I've never seen them fly your insignia over. That's kind of cool. All right. So you come back home as a staff sergeant, right? Or you come back to the Azores?
Came back to the Azores as a still a senior airman.
Okay.
Because the Air Force, they go, okay, for the next 12 months, we're going to promote X number of people each month. And so the first month may be number 1 through 400.
Oh, okay.
And so you have your line number, and you got to watch your P's and Q's for that whole time frame until you actually get to sew it on or pin on. Because it's easy for them to go, well, we're going to draw a red line through your number, and you're not going to promote now.
Wow. Yeah. So they don't do like some branches of service. You will get promoted on paper. You can wear the rank, but you're not officially getting paid at that rank yet.
Frocking.
Frocking. Thank you. You would think I would know that from my Navy days, because I was a Frock D5 at one time. So yes. All right. So, what are you doing? What happens when you get back to the Azores? What's going on?
Back to the Azores. So in the Azores, I started off working in the power plant.
Mm-hmm.
We had like an 8 megawatt power plant down there that we ran. I ran the whole U.S. side of the base.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved from there over to the other building where we worked on generators and aircraft resting systems again.
Okay.
It's where I learned that the Azores was a alternate abort site for the space shuttle.
Oh.
Yep. So anytime that the space shuttle took off, we would go out and take down our barrier systems off the runway in case it needed to abort there. And then once it got past a certain spot, they'd say, okay, put them back up. And we'd put them back up.
I'm learning all kinds of interesting things. So did you extend? You were there for 2 years. Did you extend for the third?
Extended for a third year. Yep.
Okay. Did your wife have some impact on that, or did you just want to do it?
We talked about it. And we enjoyed our times there, and like, yeah, we'll stay here for another year.
Okay. And did you deploy again out of there, or you just stay there?
So I left there October of I can't remember the year. That's why I brought my notes.
Notes are important.
Yes. Yeah, October of 01, I left there.
Okay.
So shortly after September 11th, so I was there in the Azores when September 11th happened. That was a bit surreal.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about that. You know, I was at an event for Consumers Energy, as a matter of fact, where they were talking about 9/11. And, you know, I remember growing up, everyone remembered where they were at when like John F. Kennedy got shot. That was the big thing. So what was it like for you, you know, when you saw that happen? Or were you watching it real time, or did you just hear about it?
So it was lunch. I had my wife had left the island to go back to the States to spend some time with family and other stuff before we went to our next base. So like the last 6 months ish, I was there by myself. So I went home, had lunch, and I came back, and I come back in, and everybody's standing around the TV in the main area watching. I'm going, what's going on? Like, oh, the plane hit the Trade Center. I'm like, what? No way. So I'm standing there watching and watch the second one, watch them fall. Then I was like, okay, I turned to the young airman that was with me. I was like, hey, there's still work we need to do. Mm-hmm. We need to go and go finish doing our monthly inspections on the generators and everything else that's outside the base and the surrounding areas. So it's like, okay, things are going to happen, but let's go. So we go off and we leave, and we're off base, and we're doing an hour run on this generator, make sure everything's okay on it. And then they come over the radio and they go FPCon Delta. It's like, which is Force Protection Condition Delta, the highest level you can ever get to.
It's a big jump from probably where you were at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, they didn't say this is exercise, so this is real world. Uh-huh. It's like, okay, let's shut everything down and pack everything up and get back to base and see what's going on. So we packed everything up, drove back to base, and they're like, okay, yeah, we are in Delta. How heightened security for everything. Everybody's in split shifts, so we're not stacking up people at the gates, and make sure that we're staying vigilant and watching everything going on around the more vulnerable parts of the installation, because the Azores is a major refueling hub for any aircraft going from mainland to Europe and beyond. And so you would see at any point in time, when they would transition aircraft back and forth, a bunch of F-15s, F-16s, different cargo airplanes, all there on the runway. So it was like, okay, we're going to see an influx of aircraft and things like that.
And did you see it?
Yeah, we did.
It picked up?
Yep.
Okay. No, when you're there, do you live on post or on base, or do you live off base and commute in?
There's some people that lived off base. We lived on base. It was really nice housing that they had there. Mm-hmm. It's the same with any other installation around the world. You have option to be on or off base.
Right. So I mean, other than heightened security and a larger than normal group of people coming in, did things change much after that?
Not much. We still did all of our normal monthly inspections, because we got to make sure all the generators we had off base, because we had a bunch of them off base that were for freshwater wells to send water to the base and whatnot. That
right.
Had to make sure we had to watch them and make sure they're operating.
So once again, I mean, people are depending on you to make, and your team to get this done. So you're there, you finish up your tour, you've extended, now 3 years is up. Where do you go from there?
I go back to Cannon Air Force Base, New Mexico. Go back to New Mexico.
Okay.
So I was looking at, so they give us option of dream sheet. Where do you want to go from your remote assignment? Mm-hmm. And I was looking at everything that was available. I was like, well, I could go out to California, where they're having a bunch of power issues because they're having a ton of brownouts during that time frame. Or I could go to New Mexico. I don't want to deal with the brownouts because it'd be a lot more work, and really didn't want to go to California. So I was like, okay, let's go back to New Mexico.
Okay. So you're basically like going home, right?
Yeah.
But now so I'm assuming in that period of time you've gotten your E6 and it's on, right? Did you get promoted?
Yeah, my E5, I got that.
I'm sorry, your E5.
Yeah, my E5 I got promoted to E5, and so I went to the next base as a E5.
Okay. Now, was there anybody there that you remember from your previous assignment, or it was just a whole new group of people?
A whole new group of people.
Okay. And how was that going back there?
So, funny thing is, so at my first base, there's a individual there. Last name is Cunningham. Mm-hmm. He was at my first base, and he showed up in the Azores afterwards.
Sort of followed you around.
Yeah, followed me to the Azores. And there was another guy that came from Holloman to the Azores as well. Mm-hmm. Followed me there. It was like a year or so after I did.
They just heard that you liked it so much, they figured they'd check it out.
Maybe.
So what kind of things are you doing when you get back to New Mexico?
I get back to New Mexico. The whole unit's gone. I'm showing up, and there's barely anybody there because they deployed out for Afghanistan and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so basically I come in. I'm one of two individuals that are of the same rank running the shop. Mm-hmm. So the higher ranking guy, he takes the day shift. I take the night shift of running maintenance crews for the aircraft arresting systems. And, I do that for the roughly 3 years I was there.
Okay.
During that time frame, my first daughter was born.
Uh-huh. So now you have two kids.
Yep. To have two kids at that time, 2 kids.
Did you deploy out of there?
I'm trying to remember. Did I deploy out of there? Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, actually went out to Al Jaber Air Base again.
Oh.
This was in 2003 for the invasion into Iraq.
Okay. Pretty much the same assignment, just a little bit more serious now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my daughter's born in 2005.
Yeah, you better know.
No, 2002. My last daughter's born in 2005. So
okay.
2002, she's born. Mm-hmm. Before we go out for 2003 for the invasion, and great times with her. I mean, a little harder on my wife. Just a little more serious. Getting conditions with her on that pregnancy and a little rougher, but she came along premature and came out just fine and is happy and good kid.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
Good. And so, did your wife have the same sort of support system in New Mexico that she had in Azores?
No, it was a bit different being stateside because, you're not confined to a small area.
Right.
A lot of people lived off base and everything else that was related or in the unit with me.
Mm-hmm.
So her mom came down, helped out. So that helped out a lot with me working the night shifts and whatnot.
Yeah. And so when you were deployed, how long were you? Was this another 3 month or
we're 6 months on that one.
Okay.
So we went out for the deployment, and it was one of those where, hey, you're going. No, you're not. You're going. You're not. Back and forth so many times. I told my wife, say, hey, it's going to be 6 months. The house is going to be here by itself. Just go ahead and go back home, spend time with your mom, my parents, whatever. And so that's what she did. She packed up before we left and said our goodbyes, and her and the kids, she drove up, if I remember correctly. So she kept a car. So we finally get the go, hey, you're going. So we get all our stuff. We move it out. We get to Dover, Delaware, to the base there. And they call us, say, hey, you're not going anywhere. You need to stop movement. Okay.
Whatever you say.
Yeah. We're in Dover.
Right.
Delaware. What trouble can we get in Delaware?
Yeah.
So we're there for another week or so, and then finally get the green light. Okay, yep, you're back on, and we get from Delaware and we get into Ramstein, Germany, and we get hauled up in Germany for a while. So we help out there wherever we can because we're a civil engineering unit. This is the time when I did deploy with the whole unit went.
Okay.
So we had everything from power generation, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, horizontal, vertical construction. You name it to build a city, we had the skills. Mm-hmm. So they were bringing in a bunch of German soldiers to help fortify Ramstein a little bit more. And so we built a huge tent city for them, which helped out a lot.
Yeah.
They're expecting a bunch of medevacs and casvacs to come back to Ramstein. And so we went out into the airfield and built a bunch of stuff for the medical unit that was there for them to be able to bring people off the planes and triage them real quick and figure out where they're going to go and whatnot.
So I think they knew this was going to be different from the original
Kuwait
invasion, right? This wasn't, people weren't going to drop their weapons and surrender at the extent that they did that first.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's pretty smart. So how long were you in Ramstein then?
We were there for 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then we finally got the word, and then we got into Kuwait, replaced a National Guard unit that was there, and spent 6 months there. And I was there long enough to where I worked with the power plant. I worked with their aircraft resting systems, and then they started doing convoys up to Lille Air Base in Iraq.
Yeah.
We started moving supplies and everything else. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to decommission Al Jaber here, but we need to pack up everything that's here and move it up to Lille. Okay. So me being who I am, I just like, all right, what do we need to do? Well, we need to take that structure down. Cool. I'm on it.
Down it comes.
Yep. Down it comes. Palletize the whole thing. And
they better mean it. Right?
Exactly. So we tear down a bunch of different stuff on the base, and we palletize everything, and we send them off. We send off generators that we don't need anymore because they're trying to build a whole base out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So do that and come back after 6 months, and there was a posting that came up, and my boss was like, hey, you might be really good for this. And it was a instructor position at Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Okay.
It was a special duty assignment. So you had to apply for it. Applied, didn't hear anything, come back, and then couple months after being back, lo and behold, hey, you have orders to Fort Dix.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, is this an accompanied tour?
Yep.
Okay.
A company tour.
Okay. So you head up to Fort Dix, New Jersey. Now, what year would this be? I'm not trying to quiz.
Been December of 2003.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So just shortly, like I said, 2 months after I came back from that deployment in 2003, off we were to Fort Dix.
And how long were you there?
I was there. I was assigned to Fort Dix for 4 years, only spent 3 years there.
Okay. All right. Do you remember like approximately when you would have left Fort Dix?
Let's take a quick break.
Veterans Archives is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we rely on donations from our listeners. If you are enjoying these stories and would like to support our continued efforts, please go to www.veteransarchives.org and select the donate button. Thank you.
Oh, that would have been December of 2007.
So you were at Fort Dix when I was at Fort Dix.
Okay.
We came through there for our 3-month, I don't know what the hell they called it, train up or whatever. They put us in those barracks that were condemned.
Oh, those barracks. Yes.
Yeah.
I know those barracks.
So we were there at the same time. That's interesting. So what were you instructing there?
So I was part of the 421st Combat Training Squadron.
Okay.
It was a mostly managed and ran by security forces, but we were brought in to stand up a new flag level exercise. So the Air Force has silver flag, and they had this other one. Name of it's escaping me right now. Eagle flag, that's what it was.
Okay.
So silver flag was just civil engineering alone by themselves. Eagle flag, since they found out from the invasion into Iraq, hey, we have shortfalls with our interoperability amongst our own people within the Air Force. And we need to get better at this force deployment packaging that we said that we're going to do. So that's where we set up the Eagle flag. And so we brought in people from a group called TALC who go out and stand up a steer air base after, say the Rangers jump in and secure a base, or, somebody else secures the base. And they set up a basic airfield and start bringing in cargo. And as they bring in the cargo, that's when the civil engineering and everybody else comes in along with that and starts building out the base from there.
Okay.
So it was an exercise, large scale exercise of up to about 5,000 to 8,000 people.
Wow. That's huge.
Per time that we did it. And we did full blown. Hey, send your cargo here that you palletize, and we'll manifest it, put it on planes, and then send it over. And they actually brought in planes at the airfield there at Lakehurst Naval Air Station, because I was stationed at Fort Dix, lived on McGuire, worked at Lakehurst.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Right. You were supposed to be at one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So we're out there, and 3 years of hard training. I mean, any unit that was going to deploy out to Iraq came through us. Yeah, Air Force wise, and a lot of training on our own side, and just it was really hard on the family, extremely hard on the family.
It's a lot of long hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times it was 14 to 18 hours of just 14 hours out in the field and the hour and a half drive back home. Half the time wondering, am I going to fall asleep behind the wheel, or everything going to be good?
You may as well have been deployed.
Yep.
For all intents and purposes.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And that's, one thing I talked to my wife about, and during that time frame, we had great times. I mean, New Jersey is phenomenal. It's beautiful. There's a reason why they call it the Garden State, I believe it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think people realize that. I mean, it really is, amazing.
Yep.
And I believe the Bill of Rights was signed in Perth Amboy, New Jersey.
Might be. I don't remember. But I know they have the Liberty Bill right across the river there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
There, yep.
So I mean, there's lots to do when you have the time, and it sounds like you made the time to at least try and enjoy some of it.
Yeah, made enough time to also have our third child there.
Yes.
Yep.
So boy or girl?
Girl.
Oh, 2 girls and a boy.
So my oldest is my son's Jarrett. Middle daughter is Jaden.
Okay.
My youngest is Janae. And she was born there in New Jersey in 2005.
Okay. So they're all grown up now.
Oh yeah, they're all grown up. And the 2 are out of the house. The third one's still going to college right now.
Yeah. It's amazing how life does that too.
Oh yeah.
So I want to kind of go back to what you were talking about when you first were going to have your first child. You said it was kind of surreal because, you know, your wife kind of grew up with this whole "I want to have children" thing, and you grew up with, oh, okay, whatever. And so you have children, and now they're grown up. You've got one left in college who will graduate and go off and do amazing things, I'm sure. Looking back, kind of reflecting on that, how has that changed you as a person? I'm struggling with how to ask this question because I remember myself, and your story kind of sounds like mine, because I remember my wife was like, "Oh, let's have a baby." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll have a baby. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. We're going to have a baby." When those kids come, they change how you view things. They kind of change your life, and they become important.
Yeah. I mean, it changed my thought process of, I'm not doing the stuff I'm doing in the military in other parts of my life for me. It's what can I now do the betterment for the betterment of me, in order to be able to support and for the betterment of them when they get older.
Right.
So it changed like you said, it changes the mindset and how you cognitively think about stuff.
Yeah, it's no longer you.
Correct.
It's
no longer you.
Collective, right?
Yes.
So you're at Fort Dix. You have the third baby, your daughter, who I'm assuming is the one you're talking about, still in college.
Yep, still in college.
Yep. And your time is up there. It sounds like you didn't do the 4 years; you just did the 3.
Like I said, I was officially assigned to there for 4 years, but I only spent 3 years there.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, like you said, foreshadowing is always a thing.
Right.
An opportunity came up for me to leave the unit there, to be able to get out of it, because it was a unit that once you're assigned to it, unless you do something drastic, if you're a good enough asset to them, they're not going to let you go.
Yeah.
There was a Air Force independent medical technician, IDMT, that was there, and they're like, "Yeah, you're too good. We're not going to allow you to leave the unit, period." And so you have to do extreme measures to force the hand.
Right.
So went back home, say, "Hey, hon, there's this thing I could do. The time frame I've been here, I use the exact words that you said a little bit ago. It's like I've been deployed this whole time.
Right.
I come home. I may or may not see you. You're asleep. I get up and leave before you're up. I see you guys on the weekends unless they say, hey, there's mandatory training for us on the weekends. So it's, do you want me to put in for this? It's my way out of the unit." And she's like, "Sure." And so I volunteered for a 1-year remote tour to Iraq, embedded with the Iraqi Army.
That's a hell of a way to get out of New Jersey.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, that's out of the frying pan into the fire, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I applied for it. There was really no way I was selected. There was no way the command can deny it,
Right.
turn it down. So it was my way of, I come back, I go on this 1-year deployment. I get a guaranteed follow-on location of my choosing. The Air Force said, "You choose where you want to go. We don't care if it's overmanned. We're sending you." So I did that. So it was one of the best places I could have deployed to Iraq for the year out of was Fort Dix, because I had spent 3 years training people on small unit tactics, reaction to fire, convoy operations, all these different things that I knew I was going to be using over there.
Yeah.
So it was a good place to deploy from for that year deployment.
So we got the from. Let's talk about the 2. Where'd you go?
So I went to Taji Air Base, or Taji, Iraq.
Okay.
Embedded with the Iraqi Army, part of a multinational corps Iraq in Sticky. I was part of a garrison support unit. And they had a regional support unit there. It was 12 people total. We were completely embedded with them. We lived on that side of the base with them. Every once in a while, we'd go over and eat at the dining facility with them. We had interpreters with us. But yeah, it was, I tell people it's the best and worst deployment of my life.
Is it one of those things where you're really glad that you did it, but you wouldn't do it again kind of thing?
I would do it again.
Oh, okay. All right.
I met some people there that were phenomenal people,
right.
Great people. Some of the interpreters, great people. Some experiences that, they're not the funnest things in the world to have or to see or do, but it shaped me into who I am.
Right. So what did you do? What did you do when you were there?
So I went over there. I was supposed to be power generation.
Okay.
But I showed up and then they're like, hey, we need somebody to run the tactical operations center, which is normally manned by a senior NCO. And at the time I was just a E5. I had line number for E6 and I had no officer. So it was just, I was running the whole show. So I get in there, I sit down. It's like, okay, it's not my job, but I know how to do this. I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So, all right, where's our standard operating procedures for all this stuff that we're supposed to be doing in here? You had that replacement. Right? You had nothing. It's like, okay, we're going to establish some.
Yeah.
So I created some checklist for everything, and start doing all these different stuff there. So I went from, I did that for about, that and other things for about the first 6 months. I did, besides the tactical operations center, I ran all the commo and crypto stuff for the unit, helped plan some convoys for the unit, took care of the base fuel for the Iraqi side, helped train some of their people on the generators that they had and stuff like that. And, did all that stuff and went home for my 2 weeks R&R. So 6 months or from a year, you get 2 weeks back to the States, and then you get 4 days back to a R&R place over in.
Did you guys go to Qatar?
Yeah, I think it was Qatar. Yeah.
What was that 2 weeks like being home? Because you knew you were going to go back.
Coming back, it was like in a different world.
Yeah.
I didn't drive. The whole hypervigilance and everything else. Yeah, it was there.
Yeah.
We're coming back and my wife's driving down the road and I see a cardboard box alongside the road. Then like towards the end of the time there, my wife's like, oh, that's new. I haven't seen that there. It's like, no, I saw that day one. It's been there for 2 weeks now.
Right.
Along with this and that, start pointing out everything that.
Oh yeah, and you're sweating as you drive by it because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yep. So we did the 2 weeks. I go back over there, and our base defense unit that was training the security forces on the base left, and so it's like, okay, we still need to have some sort of presence with them.
Right.
And so from my experience and training, it's like, okay, I'm going to pick up that mantle now. So now I have the talk. Commo, also got part of, whenever dignitaries showed up, I ran their schedule for them.
You're like a battalion commander at this point, honestly.
Yeah.
Kind of what it looks like.
So did, the manifest for them going around. There's a couple people we did, personal security detail for, because they didn't have enough people. Come back and then I'm doing that base defense detail as well. And responding to all attacks on the base, rocket, indirect, direct, running convoys now, just anything and everything to stay busy.
Yeah.
And we made some really great people over there. One guy, I went to his wedding after we came back. And, I had him do my retirement.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good friend right there.
Yep. But yeah, so that year there, we get it all wrapped up. Luckily, we didn't lose anybody. We came really close a couple times to losing people.
Well, let me ask you this question then, because you were actually in a position of leadership that, well, for lack of a better way, you weren't supposed to be in. Like it found you, right?
Yes.
And so you're making a lot of these decisions. And when we talk about you didn't lose anybody, you brought everybody home, but you're making decisions on a daily basis that impact the lives of lots and lots and lots of people. What was that like for you?
Being that young, lower ranking, young ranking individual.
Right.
And actually being fairly young. I don't think I was in my 30s yet. I was still in my 20s, I want to say. I could be off my time frame. But it's surreal. You step back and you look at it. Granted, we didn't lose any U.S. forces, but there's decisions I made that caused Iraqi soldiers to lose their lives.
Right.
Because, being in the talk and they're getting attacked on the Iraqi side of the base, we have nobody from the U.S. side coming over to help us. So it's, needed to know pertinent information so I can ensure the proper size response force responds to what's going on, and that they're not all going to get overwhelmed and
right.
killed. So there was 2 times where 2 or 3 Iraqi soldiers got injured and a couple got killed from the decisions I made, which
right.
it's at the moment, at the time I did it was hard, but over years now of processing and thinking about it, and going, would I made a different choice? No, I would never made a different choice. It would have been the same decision because it was an appropriate decision to make.
Right.
And it was just an unfortunate circumstance that happened.
Well, I think that too, that over time you start to realize that, that yes, people were either injured or killed as a result of some decision making that happened, but they weren't killed because of you. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is that yes, somebody got hurt, but how many people didn't get hurt because you made the right decision?
Yeah.
Right. That's a hard one. I mean, nobody wants to be in those shoes, especially someone who's really kind of still junior enlisted at this point.
Yep. Yeah. We had a level 3 clinic on that side of the base. We, had 2 bombings from terrorists on the civilian populace that we brought a bunch of the civilians onto the base, brought them into our clinical area. And then I spent at least a couple hours on the radio, just calling medevacs.
Yeah.
That's another thing being in the talk, any medevac that needed to happen from our side of the base went through me, or the person that was standing there. If the person that was in there, because I can't be there 24/7, obviously.
Right.
If they were having an issue anytime, day or night, they would call me, and then I would hightail it over there, take over, and call the medevac in. So there's quite a few medevacs I called in over that time frame.
So that 9 line backwards and forwards, I'd imagine.
I've forgotten a few of the stuff over there. I know there's first 5 lines are the most important to get the bird flying.
Right. Yeah, you can figure it out after that.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't have medevac. We could only CASEVAC because we were right in the city.
Okay.
Where I was at. So we never did a 9-line medevac. We just had to put them in a vehicle and bring them back to the cache and get them dealt with. But so how was it coming back? I've heard people say, I've heard the phrase, the people that leave aren't the same people that come home.
I would say that's correct.
So what was it like coming home after all that?
I came back and the unit, I came back and I had to go back to the Warfare Center, the Combat Training Squadron. And they're like, hey, we have this exercise going on. You need to go out to the field and be part of this and evaluate. I was like, no. I told the commanders, I'm not doing it. I spent a year doing all that stuff. I'm not going out there. I will sit in a classroom. I will talk to people. I will give them my experience, my knowledge, background, everything. And we'll go from there.
Yeah. And he was good with that.
Yeah, they were good with it.
Yeah.
They wanted to keep me a little longer than what they originally were talking to allow me to stay there. It's like, look, my whole family's gone.
Mm-hmm.
All my household goods are moved and packed up and sent on to my next location. I have nothing here except for what's in the bags that I brought back with me from Iraq.
Right.
That's it. And that was another thing that, common theme that I showed up back to the airport. I was in contact with the unit, say, hey, this is the one date I'm coming back. I need somebody there to pick me up. Can you please arrange something? Showed up, nobody was around. So walked down to the rental car place, and I need a rental car, please.
Right.
Had no place to stay. This guy I'd befriended before I left. I was like, well, I hope he's home.
Mm-hmm.
So I drive the rental car down the road, went past a auto body shop, and about wrecked the car because they started to use an impact wrench as I went by, and just swerve off the road and come back on. It's like, okay, just relax. Everything's okay. Show up at his door, knock on the door, say, hey, man, I'm back. I need a place to stay. And he goes, not a problem. Come on in, brother. I got you.
Yeah, I think that's something too that people who aren't in the military may or may not understand is that level of brotherhood, because that may have been someone that you'd only met briefly
Mm-hmm.
that would still do that for you because you're wearing the same uniform.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't know him for very long before I went out for my year deployment.
Right.
I stayed with him for like 2 weeks before I left, and then about a month after I came back.
Yeah. And how long did you stay with him to get settled to figure out what you were going to do?
It was about a month of total I was there with him.
Okay.
I didn't have a car, so he was my ride to and from work.
Well, so how long were you there before you went on to be with your family?
A month before I went.
Okay.
They wanted to keep me there for 4 months total.
Oh.
And I fought it, went to the chaplain and said, hey, this is a no-go thing, that need to get this corrected and allow me to move on and be with my family. And they worked it out. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll release you early and whatnot. And they still didn't understand the new leader that was there. It's like, so you would have rather have deployed for a whole year, being away from your family, not been around them, see them or anything like that for a whole year versus being here with them for that same year. It's like, yes, because it's about the same, that even though I might have been able to lay in the same bed with them, look at them when they're asleep, but there was no interaction. There was nothing.
Right. Yeah. No quality of life.
Exactly.
With that.
Yep.
So you, when you took this deal, you were able to kind of determine where you were going to go next. Mm-hmm. So where'd you go next?
I went to Fairchild Air Force Base, Washington.
Okay.
It was back home. That's where my wife was. That's Washington. Spokane is where the base was at. So it was kind of like going back home. I figured it was a good spot to go. Some support elements there. My parents had already moved out to Utah by that time, but her parents were there. And so I was like, okay, this be a good spot to go.
Yeah. Just about perfect.
Yep.
All right. So you, the wife, and 3 children all go to Washington.
Yeah. So
let's talk about that.
Yeah. The wife and 3 kids were there in Washington already. And I just kind of met up with them there. Mm-hmm. We had arranged for them to get a house on base during my 2 weeks I was back in the States. So I show up, they pick me up at the airport, normal welcome home, homecoming stuff, excited to see everybody. And just kind of fall back into a normal life.
Right.
Which life isn't really normal after, being gone for so long and, the whole integration process. The unit I went to, phenomenal. I showed up, signed in, and they're like, hey, go away. Go spend time with your family. Take 2 weeks.
Wow.
Uncharged leave. Go and integrate with your family again.
Did you find that pretty helpful?
It did. I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I was kind of flabbergasted by it. It's like, I just showed up. It's supposed to be working.
right? Did you show back up home and your wife was like, did you get fired? What happened?
I came home and told her what was going on. She's like, oh, that's cool. So, we spent, 2 weeks just hanging out with the family and, going and doing different things around the area, just, trying to normalize a little bit.
So did you have the typical kind of reintegration where your wife had been used to kind of running the show and then you showed up and you're used to running the show? How did you work through that?
Yeah, so that exactly was how went down, and it slowly works itself out, and try to step in and do stuff, and then try to have to remember, like, hey, but you haven't been here that long. You just gotta let things play out, and it's hard. It really is hard, and it causes a lot of rifts in families coming back and having that headbutting between the two parents. Well,
and on either side, it's not a malicious thing either.
No,
you're a guy who gets stuff done, and you come home and now there's not a lot of stuff to get done, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking for stuff to do, and it's probably driving her a little crazy.
Yeah, it probably was.
Yeah.
Yeah, granted, she never said anything, but I'm pretty sure it drove her crazy.
Well, I see you're wearing a wedding ring. I'm assuming
still married.
I'm assuming that this all worked out well.
Yes.
What was it like seeing the kids again?
So my wife didn't tell my kids I was coming home.
Oh.
So she picks me up at the airport. I see my two daughters. My son's still in school, and we go to the school, and they call him out of school early and say, hey, your mom's here to pick you up, get your stuff. And I'm just kind of standing there, and opens the door. He sees me just deadbolt running, jumps into my arms and just hug him. And, all the staff members in the office, they're all, tearing up and everything else. Because, on the base, they had schools on the base all the way up through middle school. The high school's off base. So,
yeah, that's had to be pretty emotional. A year's a long time in kid time.
Oh yeah, and it was really hard on my son because he stayed with his mother or his grandmother for the first little bit, the first half of the year. Yeah. My wife stayed with her mom. There was kids at school that, this young girl was going through some stuff herself, but she's like, I hope your dad dies over there and stuff like that. It was rough on him. But he got through it, and, started to understand that, hey, she's probably has some issues and some hard stuff herself that she's going through. So she's just doesn't know how to express herself and is lashing out.
Right.
My youngest one, she was like, they'd pray every night. She would go, she'd pray to God, hey, Dad, please protect my dad from my rock, because it would say your dad's in Iraq.
Right.
And she was thinking rock. So, little funny things like that. My wife told me about when I came back.
Wow. You gotta love kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the youngest one, she was a year old when I left.
Oh.
Because I had a 3 months train up before the deployment.
Okay.
So
she did a lot of growing
during that year. Yeah.
Yeah. You almost come home to a different kid, right?
She's, 2 years old, kind of talking a bit and walking around, and just, a completely different kid, but still remembered who dad was and everything else.
Well, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So
you're home, and fortunately you get this 2 week to kind of start trying to reintegrate, and then you come back to work. What was it like there?
Work was normal. I mean, it's power production generations. I run in the shop now. I have a civilian there that's working it with me. But a bunch of good guys there. I mean, a lot of knowledge and experience from the different places I've been around the world, and different experience, situations I've been in, to help them out through different stuff.
So reflecting back on that, it's funny. No matter where you go, like civilian world, military, whatever, you're the new guy there, and you hear the old guys talk, and you take as much wisdom as you can, but sometimes you kind of giggle because you're like, oh, the old guy. And then here you are, you're the old guy now, right?
Yeah.
And so you're imparting that wisdom. Did it make you think differently about that old guy that was at the shop before?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't think so, because growing up the whole time, I always learned to, respect my elders and everything else, and listen to what they have to say, because they're, dad and grandparents, they always like, hey, a fish story, the fish was probably only like, 6 inches long, but they're going to talk like it's 1.5 feet.
Oh yeah.
So there's some stuff in there that's like, it's nonsense, but there's pearls of wisdom in a lot of the different stuff. And so that's what I would listen to the old guys when I was there, and they try to explain something to me and just try to understand it and figure out what they're trying to teach me on it, and just.
You think that helped you be successful?
I'm sure it did.
Approaching it from that direction.
Yeah, I mean it and also the a lot of time I spent as an instructor in the service. We touched base on it when I was at Fort Dix, when I was instructing people on different stuff. But having to be able to understand how different people understand and learn things, it allowed me to have a little more patience.
Well, so this kind of brings up a question for me is, like, as you're instructing and you're learning, people have different ways of learning. Like some people are hands-on and some people like, written instruction or verbal instruction, whatever. When that carries over into how you run your shop, did you find yourself like figuring out how people were and then kind of meeting them where they were at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And also the whole thing about whether you're in the military or civilian world, you just got to understand your people. What drives your people?
Yeah.
And a lot of my folks that were in the military, they enjoyed their time off. That's easy to help out when you're the shop boss. Come Friday afternoon, hey, are all the things done that need to be done? Trucks cleaned, garbage taken out, shops cleaned up, all that stuff. Cool. It's all done. It's lunchtime. Everybody that's not on call, get out of here and go home. The 2 people on call, sorry, it's it'll be your turn next week.
Right. It is what it is.
Yep.
Right. Some of it is taking that risk and letting people go too, right? Like letting them do what you need to let them do. Because someone may ask the question, you're going to have to answer it, right? Like, who gave you permission to do that? Well, I did.
Yep. And that's the great thing about the Air Force, is that when we went out with the attached with the Army and everything else, they're like, you show up at a place like, where's your commanding officer at? We have no commanding officer with us. I'm the ranking enlisted person. I am the person for our whole group. Our commander is back at our main base.
Right. You want to talk to him? There's the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick up a radio.
But I am the person here that will be interacting with you and talking with you about the whole project or whatever we were doing.
Right. Right. Which has probably helped you since you've left the military. So, So how long were you in Washington then?
I was in Washington for about another 3. Every place I was at for 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay.
So roughly another 3 years. During that time in Washington, we deployed again, went back to Iraq, embedded with another Army unit. That time I was with the 555th Engineering Brigade.
And how long were you there?
I was there for 6 months again.
Okay.
And we built bases for the Army. They're during the time frame of their drawdown. They're moving everybody from the remote locations back in and everything else. We're building new bases for them. They come up and like, man, this place is like a Taj Mahal. It's like, well, you're going to build it to the Air Force standards and what we want.
That's right. That's right. Because we had Air Force folks come with us, and they were a little shocked about the living conditions. And it's just the way it is. I mean, different services do different things for different reasons, and it was all good. We all got along, but yeah. I remember there was some culture shock when I went and worked with other outfits as well. So on this deployment, though, you got to actually like kind of do what your job is and not all this other stuff, right? Or did you still find a way?
Still found a way to do other things.
Yeah.
So I was the only Power Pro guy there. And so to stay busy, because there wasn't a lot of Power Pro work, I was like, okay, I'll go work with the electricians. I'll go work with the HVAC, the plumbers, because I know some plumbing stuff. And it was good doing that because there was a lot of younger individuals on the HVAC side that had issues troubleshooting equipment and things like that. But that's bread and butter for me on the power production side,
right.
Troubleshooting equipment, AC, DC, fundamentals, all that stuff. I was like, okay, how is this supposed to work? And walking them through discovery on what was actually wrong with the piece of equipment. So doing that stuff in my primary job, and it was a good one. It was good deployment.
Good. So you do your 6 months. Your family's kind of used to this routine by now, right?
They are, yeah.
So you come home. It's still great to be home, but it's not the same as like that first time.
No, it's not. It's a different because like you said, they're getting used to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Dad comes and goes. He works odd hours, and able to still do the phone calls, the morale calls and everything else.
Right. So you come back, and then so what happens from there?
One thing I forgot about earlier is so after I came back from Iraq for that year,
yeah,
I was there, and we had put in our awards and decorations. I'm waiting on mine. It's like 8 months afterwards. I'm like,
that's a long time.
Something's going on. Did it get lost? So I call up back to the folks back in Iraq. Cause I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, oh, everything's fine. It's not a problem. We're just doing something with it. I was like, okay, you got to explain.
What do you mean doing something?
Come to find out, they took my awards package because we were all put in for Defense Military Service medals.
Right.
Then mine got in there. Can't remember the captain's name, but he found it. He saw it. He's like, looked at it. He's like, this isn't right. Something's wrong here. And he ran it up to General Dubik, that was in charge at the time. He goes, hey, sir, recommend a change, upgrade. And so they changed it from the Defense to a Bronze Star.
Wow. That's quite an honor.
Yeah, it was. I was really shocked and surprised at it because here I am, a E6.
Right.
Getting a Bronze Star is like, this doesn't happen.
No, they don't give those out like candy.
No. And it just came down to, I was willing to do whatever needed to be done. And all those different hats I had on at the time.
Right. Which in the short time that we've been sitting here talking, I get that like from you that's who you are. And, to be rewarded for who you are, that's pretty awesome because you weren't doing it for the medal.
No, I was doing it because it was a job that needed to be done.
Right.
Somebody had to do it.
Yeah. And there's a difference in the people that do it for the medal.
Oh, there is.
We've all met them.
Yes, we have.
Well, I'm glad that you shared that because I think that's an important part of your story. And so let's move forward then. So you're back from your 6 month deployment, and where do you go from there?
From there, I find out I have a line number for E7.
Wow!
So I get my line number. I start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do next? And another position opens up for an instructor position at Silver Flag in Germany. So I applied for it. And I got that position, and we all head off and head to a great European trip.
A 3-year European vacation?
Yes.
Yeah, going with the theme, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. The kids and the wife must have loved it.
Yeah, they were all fairly young when we went.
Yeah.
They enjoyed my wife enjoyed going to Germany more than the Azores.
Yeah. It's a bigger place.
It was a bigger place. Plus she was a little more,
seasoned.
Yeah. I call it seasoned. Yeah. That's a good word for it. Seasoned, in the ways of, the military life and everything. 'Cause she was with me for 19 out of the 20 years in the military. And so going to Germany, that's getting closer towards the end of my time in the military.
Right.
So we go there. I get into the unit and start doing my training thing.
I'm not going to interrupt you. Were they expecting you this time?
Yes, they were expecting me this
I'm
time.
just wondering, like, did you show up and they're like, oh, hey, you're not supposed to be here. You're like, oh, for crying out loud.
Yeah, they're expecting me this time, which was good.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm sorry. So you get there and how's that go?
It goes great. I mean, I get into it. We start doing all of our flag level exercise training and, going through different things that we need to go through as a training unit, all the safety stuff and everything else, and pulling stuff that I picked up from the Army, and, we just hit the ground running and have a great time. I mean, one of the worst snowstorms Germany had during that time frame happened when we showed up and we found our house and driving up this one lane road that, where the cars have just driven and it plowed the snow down to the height of the bottom of the vehicles.
Right.
Yeah.
And Germany's different from the United States when it comes to like how the roads are, right?
Oh yeah.
How everything's set up. It's an old country.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Driving on a lot of cobblestone roads and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun though.
Oh, it was a blast. So I did, roughly 3 years there. Started out in the training side of it. Then they had an issue over on the another side for the aircraft arresting system, so which was for the command level. So all of Europe and part of CENTCOM
Right.
was their responsibility. So I went over there for like the last 8 months of my time there, and try to help fix issues and problems. And
Of course.
yep, exactly. And during my time frame there, it just, as with everything else I did, Germany came out of their stuff from World War II where they couldn't have any deployable forces, offensive deployable forces. And so we got a call, say, hey, can you teach them the mobile aircraft arresting systems that we have sold them? Sure. Went out to northern Germany, over by Hamburg, I believe it was, and spent 2 weeks with their training group, their primary instructors, and the officers they had, and taught them the whole system. Helped them with all the manuals were declassified. They're able to give them. They help them with the translations, and so ran them through the whole course when installing it and breaking one down and using it and everything. So did that, and then.
So when I think about that, when I think about when you talk about that and some of the other things you've done, the training you've given people, it's not lost on you that the stuff that you did is like, that's life changing for them. Like they may not still be using those same systems, but the principles that you taught them in that 2 weeks that you were with them, in the 6 months that you were with other people, or the 1 year that you were with all that stuff that you taught them stuck with them for the rest of their lives. You changed people's lives and the stuff that you did. And every time you get into one of these situations where you're doing that, it's not even part of your job. It's like, oh, they need that, I'm going to go do it. And you do it. And I just wonder if you realize that, this is like one of those, what's the name of that Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart? It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. So Jimmy Stewart wanders around his whole life, doesn't realize what an impact he's had on all these people until he jumps off the bridge, right? So I think it's important for people to have that It's a Wonderful Life moment before they jump off a bridge. Like, the stuff you did mattered. The stuff you did impacted people for the rest of their lives. And you talk about like, oh, I just went and did this. I just went and did that, because that's who you are. But recognize that stuff does stick with people. I remember having instructors similar to you, and in those lessons that they taught me, it was basic electronics, for instance. In the stuff that they taught me is like so outdated now, but the principles they taught me and the things they taught me about being a good human being stuck with me my whole life. I think you're that kind of person.
Thank you.
Do you ever think about that? Probably not, because that's not who you are.
In fleeting moments, I do.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's what I do. It's who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need people like that in no matter where you go. So you're in Germany. Didn't mean to get all, emotional there, but so you're in Germany. Sounds like you're having the time of your life over there.
Yep. Enjoying it, loving life. Before I went over to the aircraft arresting side of it the last 6 months, they were like, hey, Need you to go on deployment. Like, I'm in an instructor billet. I'm not supposed to be deploying. It's like, we know, but you're needed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where am I going? You're going to Africa. We're in Africa. Don't know if we could tell you. Okay. How long? Don't know. Can't tell you. Okay. Well, what can you tell me?
What am I doing there? How about that?
They're like, you are going to an undisclosed location in Africa to do an undisclosed mission to support undisclosed individuals.
For an undisclosed period of time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, am I going in uniform or am I going in civilian clothes? Civilian clothes. Okay. Well, give me my civilian clothing allowance. I'll go buy all the clothes I need to get. Then we'll go from there. No, we get all geared up, me and a few other folks. And well, I was the only one from that unit that went.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with a couple other individuals from a different area. And we were there for 2 weeks. And then, President Obama gets on the the TV and goes, we have troops in XYZ locations. I'm like, that's exactly where we're at.
I want to back up.
Yeah.
I want to back up on this, though. Like, they're asking you to, but they're really kind of telling you you're going to go do this, right? But at least they were polite enough to say, will you do this? What was it like telling your wife that you're going on deployment? Because this is like totally unexpected.
It was. I went home and I told her, hey, look, it's short notice. I'm leaving in like 2 weeks. It's one of those things where they need me.
Yeah.
They need a knowledgeable individual on a bunch of different things on the ground. I'm going to go. She's like, okay. That by then she's like, that's who you are and that's what you do. And
right.
It's part of life. And,
It's still very cool of her.
Yep.
So you go to Africa.
Yep.
Can you talk about what you did there?
Yeah, I can talk about it now.
Okay.
So we went to Niger, Africa. We were supporting a Reaper drone unit.
Mm-hmm.
The unit was there to support African forces in, I think it's Chad, that's just north of that, to fight off terrorist organizations. The French were there bombing. So we would launch the Reapers. They would go and laze the targets. French would drop bombs on it.
Wow. That's kind of exciting, actually.
Yeah. And so, we're also there building, the group I was with, we were building the tent city for all the follow-on people, all of the maintenance facilities for them, covers for the Reaper drones that were there. So we were working at night because it's too hot during the day to work.
Yeah.
It's still scalding hot at night. So we'd work at night and then we'd come back and we'd get a little bit of sleep, and then we would get up during the day and work and build the tents that we were going to be moving into. Mm-hmm. And so we're doing that for about the first 4 days. We get everything built. We move out of the hard builds into the tents. And then they're like, hey, we need somebody to go with us to buy supplies for the rest of everything else. And they're like, that's your guy. They point to me. I'm like,
thanks.
Cool. Thanks. So here I am, get done working 12 hours at night, come back, hop in vehicles. We're all unarmored vehicles. So we're soft skin vehicles driving into town. We have one person with a gun with us, hitting on them. And then we had the foo agent, which is, a pay agent,
right,
carrying around $500,000 worth of cash on them.
You guys are a real good target.
Yes. So we're driving around and we're going to these different places, and we go in. It's like, we need to talk to the owner. We get the owner. It's like, hey, we need to sit down and talk business, and you need to shut your business down during this time frame, because we're buying, $100,000 worth of assets from them. You and I, because we don't want randoms walking in here when we're trying to pay you out $100,000 in U.S. cash.
Yeah, you kind of want to keep that under wraps.
Exactly. So, that went on for a prolonged period of time. And then they came back and say, okay, so the first group of people I was there with, they left after 2 weeks after we built everything. I was there for another 2 weeks. And they're like, hey, we need to do site survey of this area. Where can we build? Where can we do a more robust area? And I was like, all right, well, I'm the only person on the ground with the experience and knowledge. And so I start doing site surveying of different areas and say, okay, you could build here, you could build there. This is, what's your base layout? They send me the base layout from my time there at the Warfare Center, because at the Warfare Center, or not, sorry, at Ramstein, I instructed the leadership course, which was, the 06s and 07s, the other officers that came in, and plus all the senior NCOs for how to design and lay out a bare base.
Yeah.
So they sent me the plans. I started looking. I was like, okay, this works here. This doesn't work there. You need to change this. You need to change that. And just walking them through the whole thing. And whether or not they used my my plans, I don't know. But at least gave them some good information to build the new base. And I left, after that total of 4 weeks. Went back and I had to get rid of everything I went over there with, because it was that really dark red sand.
Yeah, gets into everything.
I, had my desert colored boots with me, and they were red boots when I came back.
So 4 weeks wasn't a long time, but it might have seemed like a long time. I mean, you talked about a lot of stuff to do in 4 weeks.
Yeah, it was jam packed. It was something every single day, constantly going. We flew back commercial after we flew in military.
Right.
And so we have the magenta passports. Mm-hmm. So, diplomatic type stuff. And we're going through, and I'm looking at this young guy that's with me. I was like, well, this is going to get interesting when we go up to customs to clear out of the country, because we have no stamp saying we came into the country.
Yeah.
So we walk up and we show them that. They look at our passports and they start talking. It's like, okay. They're like, in broken English to us, why are you here? Why were you here? It's like diplomatic reasons that we're here.
Right. You don't need to know.
It's like, okay, well, the next trump card I have is our diplomatic orders, the blue stamp on it. So I pull those out, show them that, and they're like, okay, see you later. Go.
Just left you alone after that.
Left us alone after that. And we went on and flew commercial all the way back to Germany.
Mm-hmm. So you get back to Germany, you get back to what you were doing.
Yep. Get back to what I was doing. Yeah. And then, everything's about normal after that.
Okay. Yeah. So you get done with your 3-year tour in Germany, which sounds amazing, even with the detour. Where do you go from there?
Went to Little Rock Air Force Base, Arkansas.
Okay.
Went there, had some stuff happen with the family that we needed to focus on. And that was the last little bit of my time in the military, was focus on the family. I got put into a job that I really didn't enjoy, because it was dealing with the security clearances and things like that for the unit, because they're like, hey, we know you need to focus on some stuff with the family, so we're not going to have you run the shop. We'll have you over here so you can come and go however you need to. Mm-hmm. I had one E8 above me. He didn't like that. He's like, why are you coming and going? Well, the commander knows. Commander told me, it was a 06, like, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
Commander directed, focus on this. Okay. And he's like, he didn't like it too much, but there was nothing much he could do about it. So, and one thing I told my wife is like, when it no longer becomes fun, that's when it's time to go.
Yeah.
And after about a year and a half, 2 years there, I was like, this is no longer fun.
So this is when you decide to retire?
Yeah, that's when I decided to retire.
Okay.
About a year and a half out, it's like, okay, it's time to retire. It's no longer fun. I would love to stay in longer, but if it's no longer fun, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to be happy. I'm just going to turn into that, grizzled, ornery old, senior NCO that everybody just steers clear of.
Right.
And, didn't want that because, wanted to have good interaction with the younger folks and, try to pass on some, pearls of wisdom to them and whatnot as they're going through. And, unfortunately, the stuff with the family, I wasn't engaged with the younger folks anymore. And so I was like, okay, it's time to go.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't realize when it's time to go, right? Because I totally agree with you. Like when you leave, you want to leave with good memories. You want to leave with a good impression.
Yep.
You definitely don't want to be that person who's just there until they either kick them out or they're just no longer able to stay in. So good for you for making that choice. So you get done with your assignment and you are retiring. Tell me about like the last time you put on the uniform and how'd that feel?
The last time I put on the uniform was, I don't know. I wore my uniform for my final out of the base.
Yeah.
Which that was kind of just kind of like a real big blur. It's just kind of a surreal time frame. Everything was happening really quick. And then, then you're on terminal leave and you're gone. You're out.
Right. So then you wake up one day and you're not putting the uniform on anymore.
Exactly.
Tell me about that.
It's different. Was a tough transition on that because it's like, okay, it was one of those last, okay, hey, I'm getting out, not sure where I'm going. And I was doing so many other different things with the family and trying to get my medical stuff taken care of that I really didn't have time to go, where do I want to apply to jobs at?
Yeah.
So I had no job applications out there, nothing. It's like I was just getting out.
You did exactly what we tell people not to do,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm hoping you can say lesson learned. If you're going to get out, you better have a plan.
Yeah.
Because let me ask you this. So when you got out, you're like, holy crap, I got a family, I've got bills. Did you just take the first job that came along or did you wait?
So the reason I'm here in Michigan is that my sister and her husband retired before I did.
Okay.
So they were both Air Force, both, crew chief C-130s. And I was like, look, need to be around family. Haven't been around family my whole 20 years. Excuse me. So we're going to Michigan, going to shack at my sister's place for a month or two, however long it takes to find a job. And we'll be there with family.
You ever been to Michigan before?
Nope. Well, we took a little vacation up here before I officially retired.
Okay.
I was like, okay. I mean, it's a green state, another green state I've been to before. Doesn't have many mountains, so that's a little bit different. I'm used to mountains.
But you'd never you were just like, oh, we're going to go to Michigan. I mean, you did come and visit, but you'd never really been here before.
Exactly.
Okay.
All I knew is that my sister
adventure.
and her husband were here. They enjoyed it. They liked it. And it's like, okay, it's be here as family.
What brought them here?
My sister's husband is from here.
Okay. All right. And they got I'm assuming they got jobs here and all that.
They both retired from the military.
Oh.
They both got disability.
Okay.
And so they were pretty well set up to retire and not really they could do something if they wanted to, or they could not.
Live comfortably and not have to work.
Exactly.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Bad thing at all.
So my sister's like me. She can't stop. She has to be going. She has to be doing something.
Yeah.
So she's now a school teacher at Columbia Elementary.
Okay.
Down there in Jackson.
Oh, well, good for her. Yeah.
Yeah. So get here and start trying to figure out. Got a little bit of terminal leave, so I still got some pay coming in.
Yeah.
Start looking for a house and everything else. And I was like, I knew I wanted to be, X amount of distance from, where my sister and whatnot was. And we found a nice little place. It's not the forever place, but it's a place to be for this time being right now.
Yeah. Like a starter home kind of.
Yeah. Say time being, it's been 8 years we've been at a place.
What the heck?
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, 8 years isn't that long.
Right.
So, yeah, I find I start going out, applying to different places, going to job fairs and everything else. And I went to this one job fair. I walked in and I was like, well, this probably isn't the job fair for me. So I walk in and I'm the nicest dressed person there, including the people that are hiring people.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So it was a staffing agency that put on the job fair.
Yeah.
And so I found the person in charge. Like, hey, look, a lot of the jobs you probably have to offer here aren't in my wheelhouse, well overqualified for and everything else. So if there's anything that you know of or anybody you could put me in touch with, I'd appreciate it. He goes, hey, all right, let me take a look at your resume. He looked at it. It's like, hey, I got a place for you. It ended up being down in Holiday City, working out in the Menards distribution warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went down there after, looking around for, 3-4 weeks and talked to them, and they basically hired me right on the spot. And it was maintenance is maintenance, no matter what you're doing it on, and hired me in as the assistant maintenance manager. So I was like, okay, I could do this. Did that for, about a month, because I had applied for consumers as well.
Right.
The funny thing with consumers is that I applied for a position in the work management center first. Then I applied for a position that I'm currently in at the system control center.
Mm-hmm.
The folks at the work management center, they said, no, you're not qualified enough for us. It's like, okay. So after 4 weeks at Menards, I get a call from Brenda House.
Yeah.
That's who it was.
Brenda.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's like, hey, we'd like to offer you a position. And, the money was better and everything else. So I was like, oh, I'll take the position with consumers, and told the folks at Menards, unless you can meet it, I'm leaving. They're like, nope, that's more than our manager here for the whole site makes. I was like, okay.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So that's how it goes to me. I'll go. And so I get in with consumers, and been there, got hired in right before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Same year I retired, and been with consumers ever since, different positions within the control center. I mean, another group of good people to work for. Because shortly after I got hired, when I was going through my training, I had a major medical thing go on where I had to get both my hips replaced from the time of service.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole family's like, oh, they're going to drop you. They're going to let you go. And it's like, no, they put too much money into me right now just to let me go. Because that's when they were still doing the NERC certification. And so it's like, no, they're going to hold on to me. And they did. They took care of me through that whole process. And I was out for 8 to 10 months total.
Well, here's the thing about consumers' energy too, is I don't think it had anything to do with the money.
Oh yeah,
they take care of people.
Oh yeah, they do.
They really do. It's it's when you hear people say it's a great place to work, it really is a great place to work. And did you find it felt as close to being in the military as you could be without being in the military, as far as just how it felt to work there?
Yeah, it also didn't hurt that a lot of the people in the control room were prior military. So I mean, it had, when they said, hey, we care about you as an individual, they meant it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the key things that I took from the military is like, hey, your people are your biggest asset.
Right.
They're the most important asset. Without the people, you can't do anything.
No. And if you feed them and pay them and take good care of them, they'll do whatever you ask them to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think consumers has that down to a science. There's a statistic out there that someone who leaves the military, 50% of ex-military folks will leave their first job in the first year, and 80%, a total of 80%, will leave it by the end of the second year. And I have not seen that to be true in the utility industry. It's different. people go there and it's like their forever home almost.
Yeah. I mean, it I'm sure it helps out with the lineman union, the brotherhood that they have there. It's gone throughout permeated throughout the organizations as a culture of people matter, people are important, and you need to take care of your people no matter what.
Well, and you mentioned the union. That's the other interesting thing about the union at Consumers Energy is that it's not an us and them thing. It's a we all the way. I mean, you still have your little fights.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's how can we solve this together? How can we work together to get this done? And I found it to be it's a great place to work. I would agree with you. I hope you have an amazing second career there, just as I did. So you're at Consumers now. You have 2 kids out of the house, as we talked about. You have one that's in college. Even though they're out of the house, they're never completely off the payroll. You realize that's correct.
Never, correct. It's still, still help out.
How's your wife doing?
My wife, throughout the whole time we've been married and in the service and everything else, has been in a phenomenal position that not many spouses have been able to be into. She's had the option to work if she wants to, but her primary things that she wanted to always be is a stay-at-home mom, because she didn't like being a latchkey kid growing up, coming home and mom may not be there. Then when mom was there, she really enjoyed it and liked it. So she's like, that's what I want to be there. I want to be there for my kids. So I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and been so lucky and blessed that through my time in the military and now that I'm out, I've had jobs and positions where that's been, she's been able to do that stuff.
Yeah. You said something there that kind of struck a chord with me. So, she grew up as a latchkey kid and didn't want to be one, right? And so she did things differently. Do you think that you parent differently based on your relationship with your parents? I mean, we all take some of those things and we continue them on, but I know I parent differently because there were things that I didn't like about my childhood. Did you find yourself doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of tough love growing up from my dad, and so I tried to, there was still some tough love, because at times that's from my time in the service. Tough love at times is the only way people respond,
right?
But they don't have to do it all the time. So I've tried to reel some of that back, and where I would falter to that is like I try to not do it and just kind of, okay, this is the, asking the pointed questions. Do you understand why we want, expect this from you? And then they go, well, yeah. I was like, okay, can you explain that? And then they're like, well, I was like, okay, so you really don't know. So, all right, let me try to explain to you why we're expecting the X, Y, Z to happen, and, give you the, the bigger picture and on how you may not see it now, but later on in life, these choices and decisions you make as a young kid going through high school, college, in earlier life will affect way down the road. Because that's why I talked with my kids about my time in school, how bad I was and how that affected me at the end of my school. And if I wouldn't have done that, then guess what? I wouldn't have been in the military. I wouldn't have had all this other stuff if I wouldn't have buckled down and done what I needed to do. And that also goes into the military when I faltered and failed, because there was times in the service where in the Azores, I was almost kicked out of the military because it was brought up that I had a learning disability. Well, just having a learning disability doesn't mean that you're not qualified to be in the military.
Right.
So I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to improve myself in the situation I'm in and make things better. Coming back from that year deployment and stuff like that, things were really hard. I mean, when they talk about that, all wounds aren't visible. It's real. I mean, there's people out there that have real hard times with it. I mean, granted, I didn't directly shoot at people. Got really close to a couple of firefights, but they never happened. They were able to de-escalate it. But I've seen plenty of other horrors that mankind can do upon each other. Mm-hmm. And it sticks with you. And you know, hard time working through those things. You know, and I talk about that with my kids as well. It's like, I had a hard time with it. Most of the time, you never saw it from me, but there's plenty of times I was freaking out inside internally of, I don't want to be here. I need to get out of the situation. I need to go. But I had to hold it together and not expose, because I didn't want you to be then afraid and everything else. So yeah. It's and also seeking the help for that, you know, making the decisions of, okay, if I wouldn't have sought out the help, I probably may not be where I'm at right now. You know, making the decisions to do things that are going to betterment for the betterment of you later on in life.
Right. Right.
Those are the hard things for them to see and understand as a young kid. Mm-hmm. That I'm sure they'll see when they get older. They'll be like I've done with my dad. Say, I thank you for what you've done.
Yeah. We jokingly say that the older I get, the smarter I am. Right.
Yes.
It has. I don't think I've gotten any smarter. I think the kids are figuring it out. But that's, I mean, what you said there is really important. The other thing I kind of gleaned from that too is that, taking care of yourself, your mental health, yep. Is not any different than if you had a broken leg, you'd go Correct. Get it looked at, right?
Yep.
Well, it's kind of the same thing. They're not going to put a splint on it, but they can certainly help you through all of that. Well, I really appreciate the time we've had together today. This has been amazing. People are going to learn a lot from the lessons that you've learned in life. But before we go, I always kind of ask the same question, and that is, 100 years from now, when people are still listening to these stories, what would you like people to take away from our conversation today?
I'd say courage to do something that is outside of your comfort zone, courage to get up when life knocks you down, because life will knock you down. It's not always rainbows and, fields of flowers. Mm-hmm. There are hard things come with life. The courage to stand up, brush yourself off, or, and move on. And if you have a hard time getting up, look for that person next to you, that person you truly can count on. They say, call them at 2 a.m. in the morning. They'll be there at your door. Mm-hmm. Reach out for a hand. And help. And if you are, be cognitive of your people around you, the folks that if you see them struggling, because we all at times go, oh, I never saw that company. They were there. We weren't paying attention. We need to be a little more cognitive and helpful of our brothers and sisters and reach out that hand.
All right. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Veterans Archives podcast, where every veteran story is honored and celebrated. Join us as we explore the rich histories and experiences of those who have served our nation. You can catch our podcasts on all major podcast platforms, as well as every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wreaths Across America Radio. At Veterans Archives, we believe your story matters. Visit our website at www.veteransarchives.org to discover more about our mission, access resources for veterans, and stay updated on upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to engage with our community. Subscribe, like, and share to spread awareness about our veterans' stories. Whether you're a veteran, a supporter, or simply curious about the profound journeys of those who have served, Veterans Archives invites you to listen in, learn, and be inspired. Join us as we continue to honor and preserve the legacies of our veterans. Remember, your story matters. Visit us online today at www.veteransarchives.org and connect with us on social media and stay informed and engaged. And as always, thank you for your support.